NFC now, where I do have more changes. Eagles, Commanders going away. I'm going to put the Giants at third and the Cowboys at fourth. I thought the Giants actually got impact guys in the draft. I thought Scattaboo, the running back, will absolutely make an impact, and Abdul Carter, hate that he's asking for Lawrence Taylor's jersey, but he's going to be an impact guy. They've already got a good D-line. It'll be even better. Cowboys hiring Brian Schottenheimer. Big mistake, very Dak reliant. I go Cowboys in the cellar. Next up, NFC North. I'm keeping it the same. I think the Bears eke into the playoffs. I think Jordan Love I like.
Same.
I think they're worried about him. That's why I went a receiver in the first round. They're not quite sure they can trust Christian Watson's health. They got to make this Jordan Love thing work. So they had a couple of other needs defensively, and they went wide receiver again. Vikings will be a very good fourth-place team. I think letting Sam Darnold go, I think they may regret it. All right, I have another change. I'm going to move Tampa from second to first to win their division. I like their draft. I always like their drafts. I did not like the Atlanta Falcons draft, and I don't know what Michael Penix is. By the way, I thought Emeka Egbuka to that receiving core and that offense, he will be an 80-catch guy potentially as a rookie. I think every GM I talked to, when I said, did anybody reach for Emeka, they're like, no. That guy could have been the fifth pick, and it's a smart pick. He will deliver day one. Bryce Young's improved. Saints, they're done. And finally, yeah, you can see it. I think the Rams are going to win it. I think Seattle's defense, I thought Seattle had the best draft in the NFL. I thought Arizona and Cleveland had the second best drafts. Arizona's defense is going to be a handful. Their offense is fine also. Marvin Harrison and Kyler Murray now go to a second year together. That matters. I don't like what I see with the Niners. I did not like their draft at all. I think when you look at the Niners draft, I see Kyle Shanahan taking some reaches here to help him and not the future. He wants to win now. I didn't like the Niners draft at all. I'm not saying they're a 5-win team, but I think Arizona can win 10 to 11 games. So my playoff picture in the NFC, Eagles, Lions, Bucks, Rams, Commanders, Bears, Seahawks.
Wow. Oh, that's juicy. The AFC one was boring, which I did. If you're watching this video, that one has already been posted, so definitely please do check it out. Oh man, I'm making so many separate videos with this one. From the Bucks and the Falcons and the Vikings being, you know, in trouble without Sam Darnold. The 49ers being in last place in the division, not even making the playoffs. The Seahawks making the playoffs. Oh, the Cowboys. Oh, gosh, man. This is juicy. Bravo, Colin. Masterclass. Bravo, Colin. Oh, man. My mind. Okay. I'm like I said in my other previous video, if you haven't seen it yet, I'm going to break these down separately as well, but I also just wanted to do it as a whole. It's so hard to predict what's going to happen. You know, we're making these predictions in May. Like I said, I'm not going to go through the whole thing again, but just like, I'm grateful that someone like Colin is even making these types of things, because like my mind's not like, let's talk about the playoffs in May, you know, the playoff prediction. But it's entertaining. It's interesting. It's, you know, we all just want to talk about the NFL. So, I'm happy to have it. But like this, when you actually see these things written down, honestly, it really does kind of put things in perspective, because I think the Commanders are going to be a great team and the Eagles are going to be a great team. And so it's like, how is this division actually going to unfold? How close is it going to be? Again, it's impossible to predict right now. I mean, it truly is. And the Giants and the Cowboys, like, you know, I do think the Giants can actually be pretty darn good. Like, I'm excited to see Russell Wilson with Brian Dable. I really am, and I think there could be a lot of success there. And I think the Giants are getting better, and I think the Cowboys are the Dallas Cowboys, right? Like, I think they're in, you know, it's hard because the Cowboys always find themselves to being pretty consistent. So even if they're in fourth place or even third place, like, you know, they can still win 7-8 wins here, and they, you know, they could even win. I think we could have a bunch of 9-win teams that are clearly not playoff teams and you know, just be nowhere near there. So it's I'm going to say this a lot. It's going to be interesting because it just is. Both these divisions, I talked about this also in the AFC video, where it's just like both these conferences, excuse me, like it's the margin of error for this playoff run for going into the playoffs this coming season, I feel like it's outside of like some injuries really devastating some key teams. The margin of error is just going to be so small. Every game is going to matter so massively, and every win and every loss is just going to hold so much weight. So much weight. I'm excited to see how much do the Lions go backwards. Not because not because like I'm excited to see them go backwards. I'm excited to see what type of regression will they make. I think that it's all but guaranteed there will be regression when you lose both of your top level coordinators. But I'm excited to see how much, in the sense of like, to be able to evaluate like, how much can Dan Campbell really keep this thing going and the momentum going forward. Like I'm excited to find out because I do believe there will be a regression, but it's not like I'm predicting they're going to fall off a cliff. So I'm excited to see, what they can do and what this all looks like. On the flip side, I'm also excited to see how much of a step forward can the teams like the Bears and the Packers take. The Bears, I think they'll be a big springboard, upwards. I really, really do. When you're bringing in Ben Johnson to this team, I think the Bears are just going to have a tremendous amount of success. And then you have the Packers and the Vikings. Like the Packers, I just wrote this in a comment. Like the Packers were such a self-inflicted team last year. And it's like, I want to be able to watch more Packers games where I feel that they are organized, grounded, and are winning these games intentionally rather than just like, hey, you know what? We have a great quarterback, a great coach, and so of course we're going to find ways to win. I don't want to see them find ways to win. I want to see them strategically win. You do kind of have to get this momentum to start to build, and they lost a ton of momentum last season. Injuries and whatnot, definitely part of it, but I want to see them feel like that they're actually playing on a stable ground rather than kind of like some sort of rocky boat, because that's what it felt like with the Packers last season. I kept waiting for the stability and it just didn't quite get there. So that's what I'm going to be looking for. And then of course, JJ McCarthy and the Minnesota Vikings. How good is he going to be and how quickly? That is a real question mark. And I won't criticize anyone for having a healthy level of doubt or concern around this team when you win 14 or so wins and then you replace him now with essentially a rookie quarterback coming off an injury. That is a legitimate question mark that even if you're the biggest Minnesota Vikings fan, I think it's okay to question and be like, yeah, I don't know how smooth this is going to look. It's irrational to believe that you're just going to be able to hit the ground running and be special from the jump. That is a rarity. If that was common, then it would happen all the time, and then it wouldn't be special. It just wouldn't be. It's not to say that the Vikings can't do it and that JJ McCarthy can't do it, but we know that it's more likely for that to not happen, which is why I looked at the Vikings through the lens of like, what if JJ McCarthy is just average, right? And again, not a prediction, but like, let's just say he's average, because if you're average, again, you're more likely to be average than not. And so if you're just average, then what does this Minnesota Vikings team look like? That to me then ends up being the better question, rather than being like, what if JJ McCarthy plays like Jaden Daniels, CJ Stroud, Justin Herbert? All definitely a possibility, but doesn't mean that it's a guarantee. Then we got the Bucs Falcons. He says he doesn't know who Penix is. I think Penix is special. I think Penix is great. I'm excited. That's why when he said that, I'm like, ooh, I'm definitely making a Falcons video. Yeah, the Panthers and the Saints, they're going to be, probably still pretty unwatchable or just not that interesting, because even if they can come away with some wins, it doesn't really feel like they're really going to be playing for much of anything. The Bucs, yeah, they're obviously a feisty team. They're an incredibly resilient team, the Bucs. Obviously losing their coordinator, it's going to be interesting to see how that affects Baker Mayfield and that offense as a whole. I think the Bucs and the Falcons are going to be battling it out, and to me, it probably comes down to more how great is Penix, because if Penix is actually a legitimately great quarterback, and the Falcons upgraded on defense, then I think that they could absolutely be in a position to win the division. If Penix is still kind of going through like a fair bit of growing pains and is kind of a good quarterback, like you see something in him, but like it's not fully fleshed out just yet and still making plenty of mistakes, well then I think the Bucs can kind of, walk in and win this division as long as they stay healthy. But I think it's more dependent on not how special and how great the Bucs are, but really like, who is Michael Penix? Right? Like, does Michael Penix like really kind of hit the ground running this year now? First year, full year starter, full off season as the starter. To me, that's That's going to be the bigger question for this division than anything else. And then the Rams, Seahawks, and the Cardinals and the 49ers. I'm like still processing this in real time. I think it's fair to put the Rams number one. That makes sense. I think the Rams are, they got better than they were last year. I love the addition of Devontae. I'm still a big believer in Stafford. The Seahawks, the Seahawks, I got to see what this looks like before I start making any bold predictions on the Seahawks. I do love what they've done, and I love their draft, and I love adding Sam Darnold. I'm a big believer in Sam Darnold, but I very much just want to see how this offense and defense meshes together and how Sam Darnold fits with this Seahawks team. That's what I really want to see. How well do they protect Sam Darnold? Obviously, moving on from DK Metcalf, a key point of this offense. How do they evolve and move beyond all of that? The Seahawks team definitely needs to be redefined, reinvented, and I believe they can do it, but I have no strong sense of, does that mean that they're the front runner to win the division, or no, they're just a really good team and, they're a playoff team, right? We're not expecting them to win a Super Bowl, but you definitely don't want to face them in the playoffs, like one of those types of teams. It's so hard for me to see the Cardinals above the 49ers. I just believe the 49ers are just such a well-run team, and I believe that if this team is actually healthy, then Brock Purdy and Shanahan are going to win games, and this defense should be significantly better now with Robert Saleh there, and so that's going to help you win games as well, obviously. So I see this team be a lot more organized, a lot more grounded. I actually think getting someone like a Debo out of the locker room is a positive. Hopefully Ayuk is a little bit more humble than, honestly, quite frankly, I'll just call it what it is. He was a big, gigantic baby. He got his money and he played poorly, then got injured. So hopefully you get back to a little bit more of a hungry, trying to earn, his money type of player. Some big question marks around Christian McCaffrey's health. I think that'll always be a thing until he finally retires. So that will always be a question mark, and I would like to see Shanahan utilize a Christian McCaffrey, but understand that he cannot be the foundation and this massive focal point, this massive engine of your team, because you don't know when he is in or out of the lineup, especially because if you can keep him healthy, well, then you want to preserve his body, because you do want to be able to have him be a beast and a monster in the games that matter most, ultimately an NFC Championship game and a Super Bowl. So you're not going to want him to be your workhorse in week 3, quite frankly, against the Carolina Panthers, even a divisional game like the Arizona Cardinals. Like you just don't want that. And so I believe Shanahan understands that. I believe, but I don't know. Sometimes you tell yourself lies. Honestly, sometimes you're like, no, he was just banged up. He was injured. There's still a lot of juice left to him. So I don't know. But again, seeing the 49ers in 4th place, that's, it's hard for me to envision that. Just looking at this, I'm just kind of like, something doesn't feel right here, but stranger things have happened. That's the last one, right? Yeah. And so there you have it. It's not like there's anything inherently bad about these playoff predictions, which is why when I looked at both the AFC and the NFC playoff predictions, it just excites me so much, because I think there's a lot of great teams that are not making these playoffs, which again signals to me that I'm like, it's going to be a battle, man. It's going to be mayhem to win these divisions, to get into the wild card round. Like every game is just going to matter. And, last season there was definitely, a collection of games that you could easily be like, I'm watching this game, but like doesn't really matter. And like, even if your team, like let's say you're rooting for the Eagles and you want the Eagles to beat the Carolina Panthers, for instance, you're like, yeah, the Eagles, you want to win that game. You want to be able to, win the division, stay in the driver's seat. You're kind of competing at the time to try to get to the number 1 seed, et cetera, et cetera. So like, it matters to you, but like, it matters so much more if the Carolina Panthers are truly fighting to get into the playoffs too. If they're 1 game back from the wild card, it just adds a level of intensity to that game that makes it way more exciting. And so I just think like even some of these games against the teams that are clearly better, there's just going to be so much at stake for all these teams involved. And that's honestly, at the end of the day, that's all you can really ask for when you're watching NFL games, especially if it's not your team. You just want the games to matter, the stakes to matter for both teams. You want to see both teams just go all out to try to win these games. And it feels like there's going to be no shortage of those games this season. Competition feels like it couldn't be higher. So it's, oh man, I can't wait. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Colin's NFC playoff prediction? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're all on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.